everybody again. Thank you for watching Sunridge of Nevada. We have another video for you. I am Bruce Muffson, LCSW, and today we're going to be doing the topic, well, we started this last time, from ESPN 30 for 30, The Prince of Pennsylvania, and this is going to be part 2. Thank you guys. We love it. We love the subscription going up. We love your comments, good or bad. We don't care. We want to get your feedback. Also, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be putting out some merchandise. I want to see the background here. And we'll be putting out some merchandise that will be mental health related for our fans to get a concept of where we're going with this and how we're trying to always incorporate mental health in what we do. So we're going to continue to make videos, no argument there. That's our bread and butter. We're not going to disappoint you. But at the same time, we will be coming out with merchandise. I'll have more information about that in the next couple of weeks. Thanks. Here we get started right away. In the first part, we talked about how Foxcatcher, the wrestling powerhouse, came to be, and John DuPont's role in it in getting American wrestlers who were getting their butts kicked by the Russians into a training situation where they could train year-round and get paid for it. And the results were spectacular. Unfortunately, the mental health issues for John DuPont were becoming more and more apparent, and in this episode, you're going to start to understand clinically where things started to go wrong. Okay, here we go. The attorney who I talked about before, and I'm encouraging everybody, by the way, watch the movie Foxcatcher and watch a documentary. They're both excellent, and that's why we're covering it today. The attorney, Taras Warchuk, said it was just a rough time for John DuPont. Mark Schultz had left. He was feeling that he was being pressured by John DuPont, overextending himself in his life, and John DuPont's mother died. And I want to clarify this point very clearly. When a pivotal figure dies in your life, either good or bad, it will have huge implications for you. You no longer have a center to draw from or to lean on. And a parent's death can be devastating. You hear that all the time as a social worker. My spouse died, and he was the life of our company, or our unit. And these people become the sun and the moon. And when they die, he or she dies, it's over. Now, this is even if it's a problem, if it's a good relationship. Like I'm really close to my mother. I was very close to my father. My boss and I were like brothers. That if it was a good relationship, there's still going to be orbital issues. Orbital meaning that things are going to be out of whack for a while. But for John, his mother died, and that relationship wasn't all that great. It was a fractured relationship. I'll give you a story from my own life. My mom has now passed away 17, 18 years. When I went back to Brooklyn for the funeral, and I have a sister and a father, at the time he was still alive, I recognized that my mother, her absence, the house would never be the same. And actually, I spoke about that at her funeral. At the service for my mother, and several people came up to me and said to me, wow, I never saw it that way till you said something about your mother, how there's going to be a shadow in the house. There's going to be gloom in the house. The light is going to be gone. And moms are so pivotal because they're truly like the center where everything comes and goes from. And in my family, once my mom died, my household went downhill. My dad was never the same. And for John and his mother, who had a fractured relationship, this was not a good, situation for him emotionally. Now, what happened that changed things and ultimately led to the death of Dave Schultz? He became involved with Foxcatcher. Dave Schultz, give you an example of how great a wrestler he was. He and Dan Schultz are the only brothers to achieve Olympic gold in wrestling. Very, very, very accomplished. He wanted to continue in wrestling because he knew if he didn't continue in wrestling, once you stop competing, what are your options? He'd be an assistant head coach. That's what he'd wind up being, and eventually maybe a head coach, but you don't go any further than that. He wanted to continue to wrestle. He had a very, very unique personality, and he was a fierce competitor. And as his brother said, he was brutal in the ring, but he had to be. But a great, great wrestler. Dave Schultz, the brother of Dan Schultz, treated John DuPont like a brother. And he got him to buy into the concept that we could become unstoppable, take Foxcatcher to a whole new level, and they'd be running on all cylinders. John loved the idea. For the first time in 1993, the Americans beat the Russians in freestyle. Whoa, it was huge in the world of wrestling. And you see in the video, Russians getting body slammed, waving their hand in surrender, losing. For the first time, the Americans controlled freestyle wrestling. The lawyer said, here they build champions. Wow. One wrestler said, my whole identity was wrapped up in Foxcatcher. Another wrestler said, we spent a lot of vacation time and a lot of downtime together as a family, sense of community. Another wrestler said, John opened his house to us. Come on in. Help yourself get something to eat. Watch some TV. Got a beautiful home. Let me share it with my quote, family, my community. Dan Chad, one of the wrestlers, said that John did not have a lot of friends. Robbie Calabrese said, John had said to them, we're more of a family to him than his own family. So John, in a sense, created his own surrogate family. Now, Gail Gwen DuPont, the ex-wife of John DuPont, said John had told her that he felt isolated because the older people were out of the house and the parents got divorced and he lived with the mother. So the other siblings were gone and he just lived with mom alone. Now, the lawyer made a comment that was devastating in the video, which I really realized how it affected John. He said that John found out that his mother paid for kids to play with him. He couldn't even get friends of his own. She had to go ahead and get friends to play for him. And that practice, he said, continued all of his life. He had to get people to pay them, in a sense, to be his friends. Can you imagine as a kid, you find out that the kid you're playing with, Legos with, were cops and robbers, were soldiers, were just playing a game of basketball, got paid to be with you? How depressing would that be? I mean, that would devastate me. You can't get a friend of your own? You're that much of like a dweeb or seen as a loser? Like, oh yeah, I'm getting paid, yeah. Oh, well, otherwise I couldn't hang out with that guy. How painful that must have been for him to find out that his mom had to pay people to play with him. I would have been crushed if that was the case. No one likes me for who I am. That affected him deeply. Robbie Calabrese said that John set up a trust fund for several of the wrestlers. And here's because he got so involved in them becoming his family. Now, in the early 90s, things started to change according to the lawyer. What started to change? John had wanted to get a gold medal in swimming in the Olympics. This was in 1968. He wasn't good enough. He was a great amateur swimmer, good, but not great, not Olympic level. He could not get any further than he was with his swimming. So what did he do? He went to what's called a pentathlon, which is 5 events, and he thought he could get gold in that. Not good enough either. So what happened? This Taras Wolchuk makes a point. It's interesting in this whole video that I watch, people make excellent points in almost like not realizing the other people was thinking the exact same thing. But everyone had insights to John's issues, but no one had the ability to put it all together, which they wish they would have. He said, John had substantial means, and he could not do it athletically. And the wrestlers, for the most part, came from blue-collar or poor backgrounds, and they were doing it. So all of his money that he could spend on for coaches, trainers, special diets, this is even the 60s and 70s, but still, you could pay for this stuff. He couldn't do it. And kids that really had nothing, who came from like blue-collar homes, single mom homes, they were actually competing at the highest level. It had to affect John. And what happens when you do lose your focus? There's another question you have to ask yourself as well. It can make you bitter and angry. And you have to be able to catch yourself and refocus, and it's not easy. What happens when one dream dies? Can you find another dream to sustain you? That is so hard to do clinically. They say that when an athlete retires or can't climb further, it's like dying. How many athletes that went as far as they could in any sports are relevant? And like, you stop at middle school, you stop at high school, you stop at college. You stop at college where you're not a D1 guy, or you're a D1 guy and you get no further, or you make it to a professional level or a semi-pro level, and that's where you can get to, where you can just barely climb on, and you're not even a great player. And even to be even an average player, good player, even at the pinnacle of great, how small is that, is that triangle? So when they say when an athlete retires, it is literally like dying. And I'm crazy about sports, and I've read about so many athletes that will say that. When I retired, I did not know what to do with myself. I was lost. I was confused. So how do you find your essence again? How do you find out who you are to go further? John's answer is, his answer according to the lawyer, how he kind of saw it was, I will become them. I will create my own master's class. I will live my life through them, and their success will define me. Whoa, scary. Scary. Think about parents with kids that play Little League. You better get 3 home runs tonight. You better strike out 15 people. You better win that tennis match 6-0, 6-1. You better score 22 points and have 15 rebounds. Oh, not good. You're living your life through your kid. And your kid's success becomes you. Inevitably, your kid's going to disappoint you because he can't be outstanding in every single game, every single situation. You start to live your life through your kids, and that becomes how you define yourself. Not good. John started to become so delusional that everyone realized he can't wrestle. Everyone realized he can't wrestle but John. And he actually becomes delusional enough to believe he can hold his own with these guys in the ring when they're practicing, and he starts to feel validated. I'm a great wrestler. I'm in my late 40s, early 50s, but boy, I can wrestle. I'm a good wrestler. My 50s. And he's tall and skinny against these guys that are literally built out of solid marble that look like the Hulk, and he's going to wrestle them, but he began to believe he was on their level. I am living my life through them. Tony DeHaven, another wrestler, said people would respect him if he competed. We tried to go along with him in his fantasy world. He would actually have competitions where he would put himself into a competition and get a medal, and he began to believe, yeah, I can hold my own with these guys who are all Americans, who've won gold medals, who've won the worlds. I'm on their level. And Robbie Calabrese said, we tried to make him feel like a champion. Yeah, John, great. It's puffery, it's imagery, it's smoke. As good as a ball player as I thought I was in high school, as good as I was, and believe me, I realized I wasn't as good as I thought I was. If I was going to play with a college team, and they were letting me score and make baskets and make layups, how could I not realize they're way, way, way above me on any level? But you begin to fantasize. So the problem with this being delusional is it only works if the person continues to buy into the delusion. Oh, she loves me. Oh, he cares about me. Oh, I'm a great athlete. Or I'm doing fantastic at my job. The problem is once you stop, you get the anger and the bitterness coming out, and that's when things get ugly and nasty. Now, the lawyer said, Taras Wojcik said, he wanted to prove that he could do it on his own and be one of the guys, that he never was. I can relate to you. I never have, not with anyone else, but with people I bought and sold in a sense by living on my property. Now you become part of who I am. He wanted a family, and he wanted a father, and he wanted validation and respect. And how many people go through this themselves? It was a hollow achievement, and you see scenes of him wrestling where sometimes There wasn't even anyone in his weight class to wrestle him or his age, and he'd get like the medal. He'd put it up in the trophy room. How hollow is that? I'm gonna play professional football with the Denver Broncos. Yeah, I can hold my own. Yeah. I can cover the wide receiver. Yeah. Even in my best days, when I was actually in semi-shape and could actually catch a football, do I really think for 1 second I could hold my own? I'd be killed. I could literally see myself getting killed. Or playing basketball or any of the sports that I played growing up. But it only works when you have that being delusional. And once you realize it's up, you're not who you think you were, boom, it all crashes. It becomes a hollow achievement. Like giving you an award, because you showed up to play soccer as an 8-year-old. Impressive. You didn't eat any bugs or grass? You tied your shoes? Another medal. Okay, good sportsmanship. That's always a kiss of death right there. You finished 0-11. You gave up 115 goals in soccer, but you came on time for the game. You tucked in your T-shirt. Another medal. It's hollow, and kids know this. Adults know this. John could not stop the fantasy, though. Instead of being part of the joke, he became the joke. Painful. Part of the joke, he became the joke. As I'm thinking for myself that I'm able to, who I am at my age, that I could do something that's already age inappropriate. And we all go through this. Instead of part of the joke, he became the joke. Don't let it happen to any of you that are watching this video. Don't be like the joke and like to think that you're something that you're not. Be realistic with yourself and avoid serious mental health problems. Because if you're real with yourself, you grow. He had trophies, he took pictures. I'll show you guys. He's actually showing in the video, in the documentary, how to wrestle. He's giving them advice. I'm going to give a cornerback advice how to stop a receiver. Okay, linebackers, follow me in this drill. I know. Crazy? You start to believe it. And John would make fun of him, and he finally began to realize, I've become the joke. It started to dawn. I'm the joke. I am the joke. I'm not who I think I am once again. Taras Walchuk said John could not handle rejection well. Could not deal with it. He became isolated and then the downward spiral. And what happened is the mental illness had begun to set in. Robbie Calabrese said he started to stay away from us, distance himself. Notice his outfit became weird. Sunglasses, weird hat, gesture of shooting, weird, strange. Normal routine is no longer there. What is the first sign of mental illness? When the normalcy goes out the window. When you don't care what other people think about you. When you start to dress the way you want. No hygiene. Stay away from people because you don't like yourself. Reality has struck home. You realize you're not the life of the party. You're not the person they want to be around. The girl doesn't like you. The guy doesn't like you. You didn't get the right job. You become bitter and you start to separate from the world around you. You don't care how you smell. You don't care what you say. You don't care what you do. And that's when that mental illness, I can see this over and over again, has set in and you're shot. And that's the problem. And today, what I'm trying to get the point across here is that this is a breakdown for those of you around this to start to understand where it's coming from. I'm not brushing my teeth. I'm not eating. I'm staying away. I come around and I act bizarre. That's what starts to happen. Taras Walchuk said the wrestlers started to come to him and said that John was filming stuff, weird stuff. He's filming the sky, concrete, like this, looking at concrete for hours, looking for weird patterns and shapes. If you went to his house, he would make you watch, and you were supposed to go like this. John, you're right, I see it. I see the pattern. I see it. He started to say things like that there was a presence moving something around, that the tree is looking at him. And this came from one of the wrestlers and from the lawyers. Things are starting to look at me. Things are looking at me. Because what's happening is that John was dealing with severe mental illness. And you start to look for patterns and things that make no sense. Conspiracies. That ring a bell? Oh, I know what's going on. I know about the government. I know where this is coming from. And that's when you start to realize things are getting wrong. And let me clarify, I'm going to close with this. What was John dealing with? He was dealing with a nervous breakdown. And it came from realizing not only was he never going to be an Olympic athlete on his own, he realized he was never going to fit in with all the wrestlers either. He needed at that moment to be getting clinical help, and that was the turning point leading to his psychosis and ultimately the murder. He realized two things about his life. Never going to be an Olympic athlete, never going to fit in being one of the boys, because he never could be one of the boys. They knew that. He didn't want to accept that. And once that happened, he went downhill. And I've seen that so many times with people where they can't fit in, they can't find a new path, they can't find a new direction, and they lose it. And I'm telling you now, for those watching, look out for these signs. We are pushing prevention over and over and over again. Prevention, prevention, prevention. That's going to be in our merchandise coming out. Prevention, self-awareness, how to see things before they happen, not having to rely on mental health people that may not be aware of this themselves. You're on the front lines. All of these guys, all my notes, the lawyer, the ex-wife, the wrestlers, they all saw it. They were all commenting on it, but no one could put all the pieces together. And that is the goal of this documentary, and why I'm focusing so clearly and heavily on nuances and patterns of behavior so that you, the viewing public, can get an understanding of it. That's it from here. I'm going to stop right now. We'll have part 3 for you coming up real soon. Again, Summoners of Nevada, keep on watching, comments good and bad, and merchandise is on its way. Thank you.